Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, katoa, and shalom. There's a sense of deja vu as we gather here today. Many of us did this in 2014, and many of the messages were exactly the same. Today I'm going to just cover another point as a historian. We've seen the conflict between Israel and Gaza, and it's been all too real, the battle that we've seen on our screens. But there's been another battle that has been going on in the way the story has been told and the way the narrative has been shaped. And this use of language has a significant impact. Sadly, one of the flow-on effects of this distorted picture has been the upsurge in anti-Semitism, a 400% increase reported in Britain, for example. And a couple of the terms that we hear frequently bandied about and misapplied to Israel are the words colonisation and colonialism. Put simply, colonisation describes the process by which an empire like Britain sends people to places like New Zealand and Australia to create new societies very similar to their own. In the process, the Indigenous people are often dispossessed and mistreated. In Aotearoa, New Zealand, the treatment of Maori was more humanitarian than in other places with the signing of a treaty. However, injustices were perpetrated, and we are still dealing with the consequences of that today. Academics have devised a settler colonial framework to analyse the past, but it's often politicised, and the true history is frequently manipulated and distorted. The State of Israel has often been viewed through this lens, and this thinking filters down to media, to politicians, and to the street. I would argue that settler colonialism is an entirely inappropriate and inadequate framework for viewing the Israel-Palestinian conflict. Furthermore, superimposing our local history onto the Middle East as a way of understanding what's happening there simply does not work. For a start, how can you call a people who've had a presence in the land for more than 3,500 years foreign settlers or colonialists? It is much more accurate to see them as Indigenous people returning to the land of their ancestors, remembering, of course, that there have always been Jews living in the land. In Māoritanga, we talk about the remnant who keep ahika in the land. They keep the home fires burning by their presence there. In places like Hebron, where Abraham and Sarah buried, Safed, Jerusalem, Tiberias, there have been Jews living for millennia. So the defining factors of indigeneity, including self-identification, historical continuity, strong linkages to the land, distinct language, culture, beliefs, and a commitment to maintaining the group's distinctive identity. We see all these elements in the Jewish connection to Israel. In religious practices like daily prayers facing Jerusalem, in cultural practices and festivals like Passover or Pesach, which ends with the prayer next year in Jerusalem, in the many tapu sites throughout the land where Jewish tupuna are buried, and in the miraculous revival of Hebrew as an everyday language. The Jewish people qualify in every respect as indigenous to the land of Israel. When we add to that the archaeological, historical, and genetic evidence, it is not too much to suggest that no people group can claim a stronger connection to an ancestral homeland. So, when politicians and activists say they stand with the tangata whenua, they should recognise the Jews are the tangata whenua of the land of Israel. When politicians and activists say they stand against racism, they must also stand against the genocidal Jew hatred of Hamas. So we here today, we declare our support for Israel and also for those Palestinians, and there are many, who seek peace and freedom from their terrorist regime. We call on our government to unequivocally condemn the terror group Hamas that pours its resources into terror tunnels and rockets and incites Jew hatred in its school curriculum, something that we Kiwis fund with our tax dollars via our ongoing support for UNRWA. And so from Aotearoa, New Zealand, we send our aroha to Israel. We say, kia kaha, kei te tū mātou kia koutou, be strong, we stand with you. Kia kaha, kei te tū mātou kia koutou.